what's yours?
That was also Stefan Molyneux. I really recommend. I think his website is freedomradio.com or Freedom Domain, but just Google him. He's got a terrific amount of work, and I really respect him. They don't call it programming for nothing. As productivity grew, so does the parasitic government and the elite classes. Their dependence weighs on the productivity of the serfs. The elite found an awesome tool to have their cake and eat it too. The elite farmers saw the advantage of the propaganda class as a tool of getting the slave to accept their conditions instead of forcing them with the enforcer class. This can include intellectual, artists, and clergy. They're all highly paid, and they all deal in illusions and having you accept your reality. This class of marketeers are highly paid and will sell you anything but the truth. They are essential to keep us from getting depressed about the reality that we are living in. For depressed serfs are unproductive serfs. We are in the boredom-killing business.
Less than 3% of you people read books. Because less than 15% of you read newspapers. Because the only truth you know is what you get over this tube. Right now, there is an entire generation that never knew anything that didn't come out of this tube. This tube is the gospel, the ultimate revelation. This tube can make or break presidents, popes, prime ministers. This tube is the most awesome goddamn force in the whole godless world. And woe is us if it ever falls into the hands of the wrong people. And that's why woe is us that Edward George Ruddy died. Because this company is now in the hands of CCA, the Communication Corporation of America. There's a new chairman of the board, a man called Frank Hackett, sitting in Mr. Ruddy's office on the 20th floor. And when the 12th largest company in the world controls the most awesome goddamn propaganda force in the whole godless world, who knows what shit will be peddled for truth on this network? So you listen to me. Listen to me. Television is not the truth. Television is a goddamn amusement park. Television is a circus, a carnival, a traveling troupe of acrobats, storytellers, dancers, singers, jugglers, sideshow freaks, lion tamers, and football players. We're in the boredom-killing business. So if you want the truth, go to God. Go to your gurus. Go to yourselves. Because that's the only place you're ever going to find any real truth. But man, you're never going to get any truth from us. We'll tell you anything you want to hear. We lie like hell. We'll tell you that Kojak always gets the killer and that nobody ever gets cancer in Archie Bunker's house. And no matter how much trouble the hero is in, don't worry, just look at your watch. At the end of the hour, he's going to win. We'll tell you any shit you want to hear. We deal in illusions, man. None of it is true. But you people sit there day after day, night after night, all ages, colors, creeds. We're all you know. You're beginning to believe the illusions we're spinning here. You're beginning to think that the tube is reality and that your own lives are unreal. You do whatever the tube tells you. You dress like the tube. You eat like the tube. You raise your children like the tube. You even think like the tube. This is mass madness, you maniacs. In God's name, you people are the real thing. We are the illusion. So turn off your television sets. Turn them off now. Turn them off right now. Turn them off and leave them off. Turn them off right in the middle of the sentence I'm speaking to you now. Turn them off.
We will tell you any shit you want to hear. we deal in illusions. TV programming is just that. It's to program our minds. This class peddles distractions and illusions in order for us to accept the way things are, or find, and more importantly, buy a little happiness in an increasingly bleak world. This unhappiness, we seek pleasures The propaganda class tells you whatever you want to believe, while the elite do whatever they want. You buy their lies because they make you feel better. The truth is a hard, cold reality. You don't want to believe that you're a slave, or the products that you buy are made by slaves worse off than you, or that wars are fighting for corporate interests, etc. Anything but the truth. This Marine is pretty much the epitome of that 1,000-yard stare, and it's actually the same stare that children get, and quite frankly all people get, staring at the TV. This is a stare of hopelessness. And it's ironic, because when I went through boot camp, they trained us to have that 1,000-yard stare, to stare through people. And I think that's an important brainwashing technique that the Marines use, so that you see through people and that you become emotionally shut off from other people. And it's the same emotion that you get from watching too much TV or going off to war. You lose a bit of your soul. And you can see it in that 1,000-yard stare. The mother of all distractions, of course, is war. Think of peaceful times as a pre-season. The elite of each nation implements their game plan, their national strategy. They draft with elections, treaties, and allegiances. They have contract signings that you'll see with resources. They have their cheerleaders warm up the fans, which is our daily news. They build up their team, the military. The regular season consists of economic and proxy wars. World War is the Super Bowl because the elite play their best plans and their best players for the whole enchilada. They drive up debt, serfs work for free for the team, thinking it's patriotism to work as a slave. They waste their productive capacity to capture more slaves and more resources. Eventually, all these inventory control systems fail because they're unnatural creations and they are immoral. We simply need not to be in the way when they collapse. Shock absorbers. What's the difference between a communist and a socialist? A communist is a socialist with an AK-47 in a hurry. How do we become slaves? In the past, it was either war or societal structure that you were born into. There are two modern ways to enslave a free society that I have identified. The first is shock. The U.S. government funded research on how to get prisoners to talk. They experimented with torture techniques that include sleep deprivation, waterboarding, stress position, isolation, exposure, all sorts of hallucinogenic drugs, electroshock therapy. The shock torture reduced the prisoner to a near childlike state. They were more willing to accept the authorities' demands. These are just some of the photos from Abu Ghraib. These are probably not photos that you've seen a lot of, and we certainly are going to go into more depth on this. But you can see all the different torture techniques that we use on our enemies. And if we allow our government to get away with it here, I have no doubt that they will eventually use it on us. Only a crisis, actual or perceived, produces real change. Milton Friedman. What works for individual society? What works for individuals works for societies. All the techniques used to mentally abuse an individual can become institutionalized. Someone constantly putting you down, that could be your schools or your media. Someone beating you up, that could be your police or military. Someone stealing from you, the government, Wall Street. Economic shock. Shock can come in more than one form. One is economic shock. The Great Depression took a roaring 20s of America with all sorts of incredible technological jumps and good times. And as the stock market crashed, it threw the country into a state of economic shock. This is similar to what happened to the collapse of the Soviet Union. 160 million citizens suffered as 17 billionaires were born. And bursting of the stock market and housing bubbles. All are forms of economic shock, and all are planned. Military shock is the other one. 9/11, Iraq with their shock and awe, or coups such as the one in Iran. What about the shock that we felt here after 9/11? In our shock, we accepted 2 wars, a Patriot Act, which is anything but patriotic, electronic surveillance of our citizens, privatizing of our military, a Department of Homeland Security, which sounds more Nazi than anything I've ever heard, a completely farce of a 9/11 commission. I think we spend more money investigating Bill Clinton's blowjob than the biggest crime ever to our society. Guantanamo Bay, Abu Ghraib, torture, institutionalized torture, shows like 24 that numbed our mind to torturing innocent people. $2 trillion missing from the Defense Department, $1 trillion budget deficits, and the militarization of our local police. Not to mention airline screenings and no-fly lists. There are 2 main reasons why shock is applied to societies. The first one is profit. The elite position themselves before